Going on, Dolphin fans? It is your boy Dillon, and I got a couple things that I want to talk about today really quick. Just some, of the more key points and focuses of the past, week or so or whatever, since whenever the last time was I made a video with updates of news and information. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about the coaching staff, going to the Senior Bowl, the NFL Combine and changes that are being made, and also the Dolphins coaching staff look. Just a quick update with that as well. So real quick, when it comes to the Senior Bowl, so obviously the Dolphins coaching staff has been given the privilege to go coach at the Senior Bowl, which, on the one hand is really cool. It's an exciting, privilege that they get to, partake in. And, they're actually going to get to work with Devontae Smith, the, Alabama wide receiver that's making headlines and really crushed it in his last game. And, he's a baller. And so they're going to get to talk to him. They don't get to do any workouts with him, et cetera, but they're going to get to talk to him and whatnot and kind of get an early lead on him and so on and so forth, right? So from that perspective, obviously, it's cool, it's exciting. If I'm keeping it real, from my perspective, I frankly don't give a shit. It's cool, but it's like whatever. And really, again, if I'm being honest, it's kind of unfair because, and I would say this regardless of who it was, right? Because I'm pretty sure this is a thing that happens every year. And I'm sure they cycle through teams, so, cool, whatever, the Dolphins get it this year, some other team will get it next year, or whatever, the privilege, right, to go coach there. But it is unfair from the perspective of it does give those coaches a little bit of an upper hand because they do get to interact with those players when others don't, especially considering the fact that, especially right now, considering the fact that COVID is a thing, and it has very, very, very much limited interactions, right? So like last off season, they couldn't do like almost any kind of in-person shit. I mean, throughout the entire season, clubs had to cancel practices and so on and so forth and just do things virtually. So, it gives them an even more or an even larger upper hand because of those factors. So it is a bit unfair, if I'm being honest. But like I said, frankly, at the end of the day, it's one of those things that I personally don't really care about. It's cool, I guess. It's whatever. But I care about more, substantive stuff, right? So I care about more are they actually going to do what is going to be what's best for the team? Do they properly build the team correctly? Are they good at evaluating players and stuff like that and what the team needs, et cetera? So far from my evaluation, they're not good at those things. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, they'll take Devontae Smith with the number 3 overall pick that they have from Houston, and, maybe they will. And if they do, that's not a bad pick. I would definitely take an offensive lineman with one of our first 2 picks, or maybe a premier pass rusher, one of those two, right? We'll get into more what I would do in the draft at a later time. We're still a ways away from that, but right, so that's what I would think is the best option. And frankly, if I'm keeping it 100% real, with those first 2 or with those 2 first-round picks that we have, 3rd overall and 18th overall, I would actually take an offensive lineman and a premier pass rusher. Whichever one's going to be the better value at 3, based off of, the talent in the draft at those positions, and also depending on how deep those positions are in the draft and whether or not you can get good value later on in a later round. Right, so that's what I would do, but there's also a possibility, and there's certainly rumors going around, certainly in mock drafts, that the Dolphins are going to take Justin Fields, or they're going to take another first-round quarterback, which I think would be an absolutely stupid and foolish thing to do for a number of reasons, including the fact that they tanked 2019 to go get a guy who they got in the 2020 draft, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have the the philosophy of all you need is a quarterback. I would never take one in rounds 1 or 2, but take one every year in rounds 3 or later, right? So all those different things would steer me away from taking another quarterback. Also, if you have a sour taste in your mouth because of how Tua performed, which on one hand is fair because he didn't perform particularly great, it's also, while I agree with that sentiment, I agree that Tua was not lights out. I agree that he didn't fucking put up stellar numbers. I agree that he made far more mistakes than you would want to, or than you would hope. And I agree that he got really lucky, actually, in a lot of the mistakes that he made and should have actually had more interceptions than touchdowns. You know, if you believe any of those things, I agree. However, I also believe that it is way too small a sample size and way too early to judge him off that and make a definitive conclusion. I also think that it's unfair because he was thrust into a situation that he wasn't ready for, that he didn't have the team around him for, etc., and it was stupid to name him the starter, and when he wasn't, fully down or whatever, didn't 100% know the playbook, blah, 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 I would not have started him, period. You guys know that. I just wouldn't have. There's not a chance in hell, if I was running things, that Tua would have taken the field at all, unless we, Fitzpatrick got hurt, and then the backup got hurt, and then the third string guy that we brought up off the fucking practice squad got hurt, right? Like, he would be my absolute, because I would want him to redshirt. I would want him to get adjusted to the NFL. I would want him to learn behind Ryan Fitzpatrick and see the things on the field. Yes, I understand that there is value in on-field experience, but he's going to get that at some point no matter what. You might as well at least let him get as ready as possible, adjusting to the lifestyle of the NFL, especially in a completely fucked up season like this. Anyway, you know my feelings on that. I would not have put him in to begin with, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's foolish, and I think that if there is I think it was foolish, I think it was stupid, and if any bad taste came from it, and there certainly is for a lot of people, right? There are a lot of people that are like, oh, Tua sucks, we've got to get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the Dolphins' fault for putting him in a situation that he wasn't ready to handle, right? So let's think about this. Let's say, you're looking for a job and you go work at some plant somewhere, right? In some factory. And, it's not a skilled position per se, right? That's a whole nother conversation, that gets into more serious topics about skilled labor, etc. That's not this, but right, let's say it's not a particular, but you do need to learn how to, operate the machinery, or, you got to learn the basics of the job, so on and so forth. And let's say you haven't had a single lick of training, you don't know a fucking thing, and they just throw you into the fucking job. Well, you're gonna make motherfucking mistakes. Right? You're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way while you learn. You're not going to be expert day one, right? And so, same concept, right? Like, he's a rookie. He doesn't know the playbook. He doesn't have chemistry. Not only that, he's also a left-handed quarterback. So, not only does he have to gain chemistry with his receivers, but it's also way different, having or being thrown to by a left-handed quarterback than it is a right-handed, especially since most receivers are used to right-handed guys because that's pretty much all there is, right? It's rare to actually find a left-handed quarterback. Anyway, but I also disagree with, the idea to trade him for Deshaun Watson for some of those reasons, because you don't know about him yet. You can't properly evaluate any teams, let alone individual players this year because of how fucked up it was. But you also thrust him into a situation he just wasn't ready for. And so he performed worse than he probably would have if you just would have fucking given him a year. Also, you would have needed to keep your offensive coordinator and not switch offensive coordinators. So he has an entirely new playbook to fucking learn, even though, despite the fact that he didn't even know the previous one to 100% efficiency and so on, right? Like, so, I don't personally trust this organization to make the fucking right calls. And again, I wouldn't trade for Deshaun Watson. I don't know that it's going to happen, but I think that there is a pretty substantial possibility of it. But if they did that, I think that would also be really terrible, because then they would have to incur massive cap hits because of that. On top, yes, he's a great player, and as of right now, he's the better player than Tua. But the cap hit, I disagree with. I wouldn't take that on. Also because of my philosophy surrounding the quarterback position. But you just took a guy last year, so then it's you're basically then saying, well, I mean, you would be saying that it was a waste, you made the wrong decision, add another one to the long list of failed players and evaluations from this organization, which is extremely extensive at this point. Not to mention, if they did that, they've already cut 3 players from their first 2 drafts. That they would then be getting rid of the first round player that they just took this last year and the quarterback that they just took, who they said is their guy. Right? Now, all indications is that they're not going to trade him, but you never know with this organization. And, if they did that, though, they would also have to give away significant draft capital, which I would disagree with as well. So we'll see how all that plays out. There's obviously nothing definitive there yet. But yeah, so look, I mean, when it comes to that, yes, look, so multiple things can be true, right? Like, I don't agree with the philosophy surrounding quarterbacks that all you need is an elite guy. No, I like to build well-rounded teams. Yes, I agree that Tua didn't perform all that great. If you believe that, some people think he performed like a superstar. I look at the reality of the situation. I take other things into account too, like, whether or not the team was at full strength, et cetera, et cetera. I take COVID into account. I take the would-be interceptions into account, right? I take all of the data into account. So while I think that is true, while I think those things are true, I also think it's true that he wasn't given a fair shake. He was put in when he wasn't ready, and it's not fair to evaluate him yet. And then you add in the other factors and reasons why I would disagree with the trade, right? So my point is that at this point, even though, I never would have took Tua to begin with because his injuries concern me, and my other feelings about how I don't believe they're proper evaluators of players. I don't think they're building the team right or going in the right direction, right? At this point, it is what it is. They have the guys. So, I would say keep Tua, give him some fucking time, find a new offensive coordinator, and then stick with him for a few years. Give the offensive coordinator a chance. Give Tua a chance to actually learn the entire playbook, right? Learn how to build a proper team around him, right? Get him playmakers in the wide receiver room, in the running back room. Build him a monster offensive line, right? And then build on the defense, right? I personally think the defense is probably going to take some steps back. I still think that a bunch of these guys are overrated and overpaid. They did show flashes of some dominant potential, but they absolutely will need to supplement and build on that primarily through the draft. So, let's see if they can do all those things. I hope so. I'm not yet convinced. All right, real quick, there is one other thing I want to mention, and that is with the offensive coordinator things. That's quick. Look, they had a bunch of guys, on their list. As it turns out, so far, everybody that is on the Dolphins list is accepting other jobs elsewhere. Now, what do you make of that? How do you read into that? Maybe it's just unfortunate. Maybe the Dolphins, are just lucking out and, or just missing, their chance. Not really any fault of their own necessarily, right? Maybe those guys just think that the current situation or the other offers that they have are better, right? Maybe they just feel like at the particular time that situation is better for them, right? You could also read it that, and part of the reason why I say this is because I have seen things on this. I have seen reports and tweets and comments and opinions that, maybe they just don't really think that it's a desirable place to go. Who knows, right? There's all kinds of ways, a million ways you can read into that. The point really is that so far, I mean, all we know for sure is that the Dolphins are still searching for an offensive coordinator. But all of the guys so far that they have been looking at have accepted jobs elsewhere or stayed, in their respective club, etc. Also, there are some people that I believe there still are some candidates that are currently in the playoffs, so that also does affect it, right? You can't bring them in for interviews and stuff like that while they're still playing the season. So there's that. So that's going to be something to also keep an eye on going forward. We still have to figure out who the offensive coordinator of the Dolphins is going to be, and who, Tua or Watson or Fields or whoever our quarterback is next year is going to have to play behind or play under their playbook. Oh, and real quick before I get out of here, I did also want to mention about the scouting combine, because it does look like there are going to be some pretty significant changes, most notably the fact that there are not going to be any in-person workouts or anything like that, and most everything is going to be done virtually. They're going to be doing more pro day style workouts and stuff like that, as opposed to the normal drills and stuff at the combine. It's not going to be a big formal thing like it used to be, obviously because of COVID. And so the 2021 season is already being affected by it, let alone how it will remain affected by it throughout the remainder of the season and the remainder of this year, which from my perspective it will continue to have a significant impact, but we will have to wait and see how things shape up. All right, with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspectives. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And, of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.